Serious people of Reddit who claim to have seen a mythical creature, such as fairies, elves, gnomes, etc. What is your story? One night I was home alone and was reading horror books, avid horror reader, and I went up to the bathroom. And as I turned on the lights I saw a man with a sack on his back holding a necklace of burnt bones, crouching in the mirror. He was counting, I think, or moaning. I, OFC, screamed. After which my cat came into the room. As soon as she started hissing and spitting, I ran the F out and cried myself to sleep. I was in rural Pakistan at the time, so no one heard me. My cat died soon after of disease. One day I found its chewed on bones in my garden. The scariest encounter of my life. Edit. One of the scariest. My family is regularly haunted. I once was looking at a Coors light box, and I swear I saw a train going up and then down the mountain. Also once when I was in bed I swear I felt a finger touch my stomach. But I was alone under the covers. My mom was sleeping with my baby sister Somi, and my dad were watching TV in his room for the night. We both fell asleep, and as soon as I wake up, this shadow that appears to be a man wearing a top hat came out of nowhere. I wanted to check it out, but was too afraid. After around 10 minutes it literally walked away. Mind you that the shadow was in the living room. The were connected to my dad's room. To this day I still have no idea what happened. So when I was a baby I remember seeing a pure shadowed lion with a rainbow man appear from a dark portal in my room. It just looked at me and I screamed from my crib. When my parents came it had already left. First you need to know that in my father's bathroom there were some little sort of windows on the upper side of the wall. There was once, when I was taking a shower to go to school, that suddenly looked up at those windows, and I swear I saw a strange face looking at me. It was something similar to the thing of the scary movie, because this thing's mouth was extremely open, staring at me. Red hair. I'm sure that I saw that. I screamed out loud, tried to get out of the bathroom, but my father came before I even could get out. When I looked back again where this thing was, it wasn't there anymore. I couldn't be alone on the bathroom for a whole week. I was like 12 yo at that time. Now I'm 20 yo and still thinking that shit was real. I've experienced some type of encounters, you can call it, with sirens and ghosts. The siren encounter I didn't actually see it, but I heard a siren song and I haven't told many friends about this, but it horror like this. For context, my father worked at that time as a night guard for some industry boats and sometimes I went with him because the place had internet and I would keep my father company too. So one day he told me that he heard a weird song from the river. Just before getting asleep, he could sleep at work because he just needed to just call the police and wait for them. Something happened and couldn't actually do anything if the police wasn't there. That's why he left that work. Anyways, he told me about that and joked about it being sirens singing. But the dudes that worked on the boats claimed that they heard the songs coming from the water or the other side of the river some days, that they had to work until late night, but the songs stopped when they got outside and looked for what was making the sound, and seems like that it's a legend about some sirens in the river. So one night that I go with my father, he goes to sleep and I stay awake playing with a netbook, and at exactly 4 AM I open the door and go out of the room to get some fresh air, and I sit on a chair and I start to hear some sort of melody. It was like a humming, but it was so refined that it felt like a song. And I can ensure that the legends about a siren song being hypnotizing are pretty much true, because it felt like the sound was coming from the same place as I was, and I started to get the feeling to go to the river. But the thing is, the river is almost 300 meters away, and I just was like, I definitely will not go to the river, and I just sat in the chair and waited for the weird feeling to go away. I don't know when, but I fell asleep and my father wakes me up. I wake up and I was sleeping in the chair, but the thing doesn't end there, because I remember that I didn't say anything to my father about what happened, but I didn't because I couldn't remember what happened. Some days after that I was sleeping in my house. It's 1 kilometer away from the place, and I wake up at exactly 4 AM and I just feel weird. And I get up from the bed and go to the balcony to get some air, and I heard the song again. This time is a little bit more quiet, but it's the same feeling as before. I feel like it's in my head. and it was so beautiful that I just sat there and heard it until I couldn't hear it anymore. And after that I get up to go to bed again, and I felt weird, and in that moment I remember what happened that night, and I was like, what the hell, how the duck did I forgot that night, and more exclusively that song. I repeat it. It was so beautiful that there isn't a single song in human history that can compare to that, I think. Anyways, I still remember sometimes how that was so weird, but interesting at the same time. I saw a glowing skeleton wearing a black cloak in my parents' house back in college. I was home visiting for the weekend. It was probably around 2 AM Saturday morning. I hadn't gone to sleep and was working on something on a tray on the floor in front of the TV. I heard footsteps outside my door. I thought it was my sister passing my room on the way to the stairs. So I threw open the door. Instead of seeing my sister, I looked directly at a glowing skeleton thing in a black cloak. It was leering at me. I swear my heart stopped. It seemed like it just stood there for hours, but it was really just a few seconds before it disappeared. I closed the door and locked it. I didn't know what else to do. In the morning, there were footprints in the hallway carpet. The next night after midnight, I heard the same footprints, but I couldn't bring myself to open the door. I actually made it a rule that I didn't ever leave my room after midnight again. Didn't want to see it again. Close street thing I've got to a supernatural story is basically my sister and my mom took our dog to the vet, so it was just me in the house. I was on FaceTime with 2 people, and suddenly I hear someone scratch my door exactly like my dog does. I'm 100% sure I heard it, and I never could figure out what it was. Christmas Eve 2017, I was standing in my garage getting ready for a family Christmas party and turned around to my mother standing behind me. Clear as day. I stared for like 15 seconds unable to breathe, and then closed my eyes, and when I opened them again she was gone. My mom died in August of 2014. I was lost in the woods when we went to my grandmom's house not knowing what to do. I stood in my place waiting for my parents to return. An old woman found me and took me to her house, gave me some cookies, and then she directed me to my starting points. My parents found me asking me where I was, but this ain't the weird part. They told me that they came back for me immediately, and it had not taken more than 3 minutes. I was clearly there for an hour, and after we went home, when I tried to tell them about what happened, they told me that I was never lost. To begin with, sometimes I think I dreamed about it, but it was too realistic to be a dream. In the year 2005, I was sitting on my front porch on a nice summer day when I was compelled to get up and go over and sit in the grass of the front yard. There was no breeze at all that day, but I noticed that all the blades of grass started bending in different directions. And then I saw 2 little fairies. They were very small and sort of 2-dimensional. They were so small they could fit into your fingernail. And one was a boy, the other a girl. They were kind of froggy looking. They had like kind of frog faces. And a little girl, one had on a tutu-and-point ballet slippers and was going from the top of the blade of grass to the top of the blade of grass in her ballet slippers. The other one, the boy, had on shorts and little suspenders, and he was also walking along the tops of the blades of the grass. And as quickly as this appeared to me, it ended. So I couldn't see the blades of grass moving, and I could no longer see the fairies. When I was about 11, my grandpa passed away. A few weeks later, my brother and I were waiting to catch the regular morning school bus at the end of our street. We saw a man driving towards us in what looked to be our grandpa's old car, a maroon-colored Mitsubishi sedan. It was only when the man drove past that we looked directly at him to see our grandpa's familiar face grinning back at us. We're both in our late 20s now and still talk about this all the freaking time. Sometimes when I walk into a room, electronics will act up, and I'll have a feeling like I'm not alone. When I mean electronics act up, I mean the television will turn on or toys will activate from the opposite side of the room without their buttons being pushed. This phenomenon has happened since I was a kid, and the television would turn on and wake me up in the middle of the night. I've seen a shadow figure watching me. It's a shadow about 6 to 7 feet tall in the silhouette of a person. It's not against the wall, it stands in the middle of the room. I yelled at it to go away once and it did. A few years went by, and then I started getting the feelings again, and the electronics act up sometimes. but I've not seen the shadow figure since. I try to reason with myself and assign probabilities to what it could be. I know it could be hallucinations, but my mother and an ex-girlfriend both told me about seeing it without knowing I had seen it. Maybe it could be some species of alien or invisible suit. But what would this being want to do with me? Sometimes I wonder if it's someone I know from the future in some weird time travel viewing device that displaces them in time. Maybe they miss me and just want to see me again. I don't know. Has anyone else seen shadow people? My mom predicted the death of 3 family members, all of them a day before. Personally, I don't believe in that shit, so it must have been an amazing coincidence. Still, it makes you think. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.